Turns out the Milwaukee Bucks might actually be pretty good. Camille and I recap a nice win against the New York Knicks coming up next.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bucks. I'm Justin Garcia, joined as always by Camille Davis. We thank you for making this your first listen of the day each and every day. You can hear me on the Bucks Radio Network. You can find Camille on our Locked On NBA coverage weekly on the Locked On NBA show and the Technical Foul podcast as well. If you have not already, please like and subscribe. It helps us out immensely, and you get notified whenever the new episodes drop, which we mentioned, Camille, we're going to do much more frequently this season. And I mean, if this first week is any indicator, we're going to have a lot of good vibes throughout the course of this season. So last night, the New York Knicks come to town. This was an interesting little stretch on the schedule for the Bucks, as you had the Cavs Sunday, the Knicks obviously last night, and now you got the Warriors coming up. But those two games, the Cavs and Knicks, I don't think any player would tell you this. And I think you started to hear some of the questions probed and asked last night to Ryan Rollins and Giannis. And as expected, they did their best to deflect those. But I know I had these circled on the calendar of, okay, let's see how this looks against these groups that dominated you last year. The Cavs, it was the first two games that were competitive, and then they just ran away with it in the final two games. The Knicks, there was no competition. They went 3-0 against you, the Knicks did, and they won those games by an average of just under 22 points per game.
Yeah.
Karl-Anthony Towns was unstoppable against the Bucks last season. So to talk about this new Bucks, we needed to see how it looks against those types of teams. And again, the Cavs didn't have two pieces as well, and Max Strus and Darius Garland, but you basically didn't have a point guard, if we're led to believe Ryan Rollins is not a true point guard and point Giannis. Cole Anthony and what he's brought off the bench so far in just 4 games. You're still without KPJ. And the guy that I think we're going to spend more time than any of us anticipated talking about in today's show, Kyle Kuzma, also missing that game. So to see the end result and how competitive they were, I think we all left with moral victories. Not really a thing, but you know what? I'm kind of there with this. And then to see Tuesday night against the Knicks, and a bad quarter was basically the difference in this one for the Bucks. A 45-point second quarter where the Knicks shot 80% on threes. They overhelped. It seemed like the Knicks were getting in the paint, and Mike Brown talked about this before the game. We got to spray the ball. We got to touch the paint and spray it out to our shooters. That's what they did in the second quarter. And for the Bucks to respond in the second half the way they did, I know everybody avoided this answer, but this certainly felt like a statement game to me.
Yeah, and it's interesting to think about, like, can you have a statement game this early in the season at this point? But I think you set the scene really well as to why one might consider it as such, because of how the Bucks played against the Knicks last year, how they played against the Cavs last year. Giannis himself mentioned, like, I don't forget. And when I heard him say that in the postgame, I was like, "Ooh, you about to pull some receipts?" But he was just talking about how the Bucks played the Knicks last year, how they played the Cavs last year. He knew that this was a team that they did not beat last year. He mentioned it to the guys. He said before the game of, like, hey, good teams, they don't lose 2 games in a row. We have to respond after losing that game in Cleveland. And this is a team in the New York Knicks that we did not have much success against last year. They were one of the better teams in the East last year. So was Cleveland. If we're trying to be who we think we can be, we have to come out and make some statements of our own. And the Bucks did that in this game, in this win against the Knicks. You mentioned the Karl-Anthony Towns factor of it. Last season versus the Bucks, Cat was averaging 25 points, 13 boards per game on rounding up 54, 44, 87 shooting splits in those 3 games, which, as we mentioned, were all Knicks wins. Tonight, yesterday against the Bucks in Milwaukee to kick off this season, Karl-Anthony Towns had 8 points, 12 rebounds, and his shooting splits were 17-0, 100 in this game against the Bucks. And when you see that 8 points per Karl-Anthony Towns, someone who has gassed you the last year, like, you love to see that. The Myles Turner effect of it all. Like, he hasn't been shooting the ball necessarily really well, but defensively, Myles Turner has been giving you everything that you want. You're seeing different guys buying into the role. Giannis out here being Giannis, doing the Giannis things. You mentioned Kyle Kuzma buying into his role, playing defense, not taking crazy shots. He took one in this game. One shot where you look at Kuzma and be like, all right, man, but he only took 2 shots.
In fairness, we've seen him take worse shots, but yes, that was
exactly. So you live with that. Like, this, it's still very, very early in the season. You take things with a little bit of a grain of salt, but when you compare how this team this year is starting based on how the team last year started, like, we've already got more wins at this point than we had until like mid-November of last season. So they're making progress, and even on the court, you can see it. Like, this team is fun because they have so much hustle and effort. They could have shrunk after that second quarter and be like, man, they got really hot from 3. We got to find a way to respond. We've seen the Bucks start third quarter slow, and that was not the case against the Knicks and Milwaukee on Tuesday night.
Third win of the season last year was November 12th against the Raptors.
Yeah.
And that was an NBA Cup game, so maybe that's what it takes to bring out the best in the Bucks, or at least it did a season ago. You know, you mentioned Kuzma, and we'll get to a little more Kuzma in our next segment here, because I was very impressed with how he played last night. We would be doing a major disservice, though, to go 6+ minutes now without mentioning 2 names for the Bucks, and that obviously Giannis and Ryan Rollins. Giannis started this game, I think, 1 of 5 and had 4
Had to change
points.
Had to change the shoes.
4 points in the first quarter. Just, didn't look like a dominant Giannis, where you're like, oh, okay. Like, we were kind of geared up and looking to, how are the Bucks going to defend this team now? Maybe the Knicks have figured something out here. And from that point forward, it was on. That he finished what I think it was like 15 of 17 to close the game, scored 33 points in the final 3 quarters of the game. And he was just like a hot knife through butter against good individual defenders with OG Anunoby that you can throw out there, and just length. None of it fazed him. And I think before we get to Ryan Rollins, what stands out the most so far about Giannis is, I mean, number one, these eye-popping numbers in 37 points in 33 minutes.
But say that one more time for the people in the back, Justin.
Coming into the game, Camille, his per 36 numbers were, if we round up, 40 points a game. I would imagine it's still sitting around there. He has scored 30 points or more in each of the 4 games this season. He has scored 30 points or more while shooting 70% or better in each of the last 3 games, which is the longest streak we've seen to open a season since Shaq in 1996. So we saw the efficiency last year. Frank and I, well, not just last year, but we saw it really start to build last year. Frank and I talked about the mid-range shot. I mean, those were his misses, basically. The mid-range shot has not been there so far this season. But if the trade-off is Giannis is going to take 2 to 3 threes per game and he's going to shoot 40% on those, you know what? I'll live with that, with the mid-range numbers plummeting. But it's like clockwork through these 4 games, that this, for all aspects to be considered, is the best I've seen him play, because I don't necessarily buy into and you don't either, there's no talent around him, but the name brand talent is not there. And what that does is it changes the outside perception of the media, certainly, but teams as well, and how they gear up to defend this guy. In that, how many times have we seen the wall? But teams are just going to say, okay, somebody else has to beat us. He's facing that, especially the Cavs game. And he still did what he did efficiently. He still did what he did efficiently against the Knicks. He's still making impactful plays defensively. Like, all of it that was kind of weighing over him with the offseason chatter, which he had some more interesting thoughts we'll get to. This is the most impressive he's ever looked to me.
Yeah, and it's just continued to build. After the game last night, I saw Frank have a tweet where he said that he understands people having concern over Giannis's workload, because when you look at the numbers like you just listed, you're just like, oh my goodness,
there was 2 people specifically that voiced this concern, but yeah.
Where you're like, can he do this all year because the ask of him is high. The attention that he's getting from other teams is high. But Frank pointed this out, and I'm just going to read it verbatim because even when Frank's not here, Frank is going to be here, okay? Because he said, I get concerned over Giannis's workload, but let's not confuse his dominance with Doc running him into the ground. His minutes, touches, and time of possession per game are actually lower this year, while his usage is only marginally higher, the third highest of his career. He's just unstoppable at this point. And it seems like there's a conscious effort for that too from Doc and the training. Like they understand what they're asking Giannis to do this year. You heard Doc after the Cleveland game where he was like, we kept him at 33 minutes on purpose because we knew we were going to be asking a lot of him in this game. So like the Bucks are aware of what they're asking Giannis, and they're trying their best as well to make sure that they're doing what they can to kind of preserve him along the way when it comes to his minutes, given that when he's on the court, what he's tasked to do is so great. But the play when Giannis had the block, and then Gary Trent took it in the fast break, but then Giannis cleaned it up, got the board, got a little dunk, and then walked back and go, this is my city. And then there was kind of questions of what he was saying afterwards, but Eric Name asked, and Giannis said, I was saying I thrive when it's tough.
Yeah.
Like I love when it's tough. That's when I really thrive. And it checks out of things that Giannis has said over the summer. His interview when he was talking with the Greek media, and he mentioned like, I like kind of being counted out. I like when it's kind of tough. I enjoy the challenge. And he's stepping up to the challenge in the biggest of ways so far early in the season for the Bucks.
Yeah, 39.8 points per
36.
And the minutes are about 2 minutes less per game than they were during the Dame era. He's letting things come to him, which is crazy to say for a guy that we just said is averaging 40 points per 36 minutes and flat average of 36 points per game right now. But he's not trying to force things. And like that's, again, it just adds into how impressive he's been to start the season. I know it's only 4 games. Giannis himself said last night, look, we still got 78 other games, and was very quick too to say, like, I don't want to praise Ryan Rollins too much because it's early, but that doesn't mean we can't. So Ryan Rollins is another player that we have to talk about, and maybe we should start keeping receipts as well, Camille, so that we'll get into that conversation of what Ryan Rollins continues to do coming up next on Locked On Bucks. Well, one of the tools that can help make a huge difference for business owners is Quo. It's formerly Open Phone. It's the same great business phone system you've heard us talk about before, just has a new name. And here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table. When a customer calls your conversation, it matters. You need a phone system that keeps track of those things and keeps you connected 24/7. Quo is the #1 business phone system that streamlines customer communications. It works right through an app on your phone or your computer. So no more carrying 2 phones or relying on a landline. Quo, formerly known as Open Phone, lets your team share one number. They can collaborate on calls and texts, use a shared inbox, so no customer gets left behind. And they have a built-in AI agent that can answer after-hours calls, capture leads, and keep business moving even when you're off the clock. So see why 90,000 businesses, more than 90,000 businesses, trust Quo, formerly Open Phone. Get started free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedonnba. That's QUO.com/lockedonnba. And if you have existing numbers with another service, Quo will port them over at no extra charge. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. If you're a business owner, here's the truth. Appointed work makes things easier, but now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply don't work together. That's not what you get with SaaS. SaaS is software as a service. That's why you need Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance, all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. Rippling allows you to control everything from onboarding to payroll to IT access. It runs automatically and perfectly in sync. It's seriously simple to use. It gives companies one source of truth for their people, data, and everything they touch. So whether you want to run your entire HR, IT, and finance operations as one, or just fill the gaps in your software stack. Rippling can do it all. Right now, you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/lockedonnba. Learn more at rippling.com/lockedonnba. That's rippling.com/lockedonnba for 6 months free. So it turns out this Ryan Rollins kid is pretty good, Camille.
Yeah.
And, I was talking about it with a few other people who would point out the sample size of his work and why other teams may not have been interested. Yeah, that's fair if we're talking about larger deals. But, we just have to point this out once more. The Bucks had to renounce his rights over the summer as part of their cap gymnastics and the wave and stretch and freeing up enough money to sign to sign Myles Turner, so they could remove his cap hold and have enough where they could make that splash. Renouncing his rights meant he was an unrestricted free agent. Any team could have had him for what amounts to be basically the league minimum. I know it was just slightly over that, but it's not like, well, you got to have enough in the mid-level to sign him. Anybody could have had this guy.
Yeah.
And 29 teams passed on him. And look, I don't think that Ryan Rollins was in the dark when they renounced his rights. I'm sure there was back channels and communications of, we got to do this. We still want you here. So just hang tight. But man, am I glad that no other team, bad teams, any team that's just void of talent and young talent to develop, like we talked about the Bucks being, didn't say, you know what, let's roll the dice on this kid and maybe let's float him $4.5 million.
Same, big same over here. Ryan Rollins is someone who we were talking about a lot over the summer, right? Of like, hey, what's the expectation for Ryan Rollins coming back? We were hoping the Bucks would find a way to bring him back because of the flashes we saw in his game last season. And even before that, his last summer league, where we were kind of like, when we talked about summer league last year, it was like, Ryan Rollins looks pretty good. Like, we can see how this translates. And then he got some actual playing time for the team. And it was like, hey, he's flashing some things here. Got the shoulder injury, played through it because he was presented with a chance to have actual playing time with this Bucks roster. And he took that because he understood the point in his career that he was at and what that opportunity meant for him. And now to see him healthy, playing a prominent role, stepping into the starting spot while Kevin Porter Jr. is out, seeing even Kevin Porter Jr. tweeting at Ryan after the game, like encouraging him, bigging him up. And that aspect of it, I love as well, because a lot of the conversation now is, again, one that we had over the offseason of, should Rollins actually be starting for this team based on what we've seen now? So to see Kevin Porter Jr. just hyping his guy up too, I love that aspect, the brotherhood on this team, but the understanding too, like in training camp, guys are competing for minutes. Like, they are competing for these minutes. They want to be on the court. And I feel like regardless of if Rollins starts or not, once Kevin Porter Jr. is healthy, the minute load that he has taken on, he has earned, if not more, on his plate. So for me, it's like, I don't care as much if he starts or not at this point in the season. I just need him to be on the court, getting the playing time, because as we saw last night against the Knicks, offensively, he was there for the team, and defensively, he was there for the team as well. And that's the piece for me that really stood out, because Jalen Brunson has been a Bucks killer. When I talked to Gavin Shaw of Locked On Knicks, I was like, normally it's Cat and Brunson last year that the Bucks just could not contain, and Brunson for years, even longer than that, because he's just so crafty. He can draw the fouls. He gets to the mid-range, likes the floaters. Nate Duncan tweeted after the game too, Jalen Brunson with Ryan Rollins off the floor. He was 9 of 13 for 20 points, plus 8 in 15 minutes. When Rollins was on the court with Brunson was 4 of 10, 14 points in 18 minutes, and minus 19. Like, the defense of Rollins is so annoying. Annoying for other teams, enjoyable for Bucks fans and for myself watching.
That's how Giannis described him after the game too.
Annoying. That's the word I would use too. Like, I think of the clip of when LeBron was playing the Spurs and the young Kawhi, and he looks back, sees him checking the man. He's kind of like, dang, I got to deal with this kid again. That's what it's starting to feel like for Rollins. I'm not saying Ryan Rollins is Kawhi Leonard.
Well, look, Camille, before the season, remember when I tepidly and even said, like,
player of the year?
I don't know
Or
if
all defense.
we should push this out there, but like, do you think there's a scenario where he starts to insert himself in an all defensive conversation? Not first team, but we're still not there, but I would imagine he's still leading the league in deflections, and he's averaging 3 steals per game. I'll acknowledge it was cherry-picked stats, but last night, 25 points, 4 threes, 4 steals, 4 assists. There's only 10 Bucks that have done that, and some of them are Hall of Famers. Damian Lillard is one of them. Ray Allen is another one. Michael Redd did it. So, like, that's the type of performances that we've grown accustomed to seeing now from Ryan Rollins. He was just, you can feel his presence when he's out there defensively. And there's a couple of moments too with Damian Lillard. There it goes again.
On the brain this morning.
With Jalen Brunson out there on the court. And when he'd check out, there was one stretch in particular where I think Doc had both Ryan Rollins and Karl-Anthony on the court, and Brunson checked out. There's about 30 seconds to a minute that passed, and I remember thinking, and I even brought it up on the broadcast too, like, I wonder if should you not lift him here and just preserve those minutes for when Brunson, and just like that, Doc brought in, I think, Amir Coffey. So it's just, you brought one other thing up too about the starters, which is a conversation that was raised to me last night on the radio post-game show, but I think it's an interesting one to have. I do want to get into that. And, just a proof of concept game that, we said the players may have tiptoed around, but the massive differences that you and I mentioned earlier on the show that we saw some more numbers on what we saw in this version of the Bucks and how they can stack up against these teams, whereas they just could not a season ago. We'll get to those conversations coming up next. Peloton shaping the future of fitness with a brand new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus. Powered by Peloton IQ, it's their most advanced equipment yet. It's designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move. So whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training, doing it all with your favorite instructors. It's training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. The IQ system offers real-time strength coaching where it actually tracks your reps. It'll suggest the right weights and correct your form, making every rep smarter and safer. And the swivel screen is something you can take with you. You can go from running on the Tread Plus to strength training without missing a beat. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. So, first and foremost, based on everything that I've heard and what Doc said before the game yesterday too, I think he all but said we're not seeing Kevin Porter Jr. on Thursday. I don't think we're going to see him on Saturday. I don't know if we'll see him on Monday. Because next week it's Monday, Tuesday, back to back.
Yes.
Toronto, Cleveland, right?
No, it's the Pacers game on Monday.
Pacers, Toronto. Yeah, that's right. The Myles return to Indiana. I kind of feel like the earliest we'd see Ryan Rollins is it next Thursday they return home?
I think
Ryan
so.
Rollins. Man, I'm just mixing them all up today. Kevin Porter Jr. I just kind of reading between the lines. Don't think you're going to see him until after the back-to-back, and they're back at home at the earliest. Doc did say it was a bad sprain, and I think what I take from that is it had the potential to be bad. And we don't want to rush him out there because what if he tweaks it again and then it becomes something that lingers throughout the season? So it's game number 1. We're taking it really slow with him. And it also helps that we have Ryan Rollins exploding and Karl-Anthony coming off the bench. So when they do return to full strength, and let's say that's sometime late next week, what is your starting lineup?
I would probably go back to the starting lineup that we saw at the beginning of the year with Kevin Porter Jr. getting that starting nod. But the thing for me, like I said, the minutes for Ryan Rollins has to be there. And I think that the approach, and we've seen it already so far this season, is like we end the games with who got it. for this particular game. Whatever the situation calls for in this game is how we're going to end it. So sometimes I think it could be you see both Rollins and Kevin Porter Jr. out there. Sometimes you might see one on the bench. Sometimes it might be, AJ Green closing. Sometimes he might be on the bench. But more than anything, for me, what I'm hoping that when Kevin Porter Jr. comes back, what you see is that the bench lineups or the non-Giannis minutes just look a little bit better, where you're able to distribute some of the guys on the floor a little bit differently. Like some of the lineups when it's all bench, you're trying to buy the time, and I get that, especially trying to keep Giannis's workload down, but just some of the combinations there. I think when you're fully healthy, you have some more viable combinations you can put out there in lineups going forward. So I think I would give Kevin Porter Jr. his job back at that starting spot because, one thing that we haven't got a chance to really see so far in the regular season is the synergy between Karl-Anthony and Ryan Rollins when they share the court together. They've had to be split a lot more often now with the injury to Kevin Porter Jr. So there's still some good with Rollins coming off the bench and being in those lineups. But again, if as the season goes on, this isn't set in stone, right? Like if you go on and you're like, hey, actually the Rollins fit works better, then you make that move. But ultimately, for me, it's about who's ending games more than anything. And if you have certain matchups, maybe you make a pool, like if it's a Brunson or another guard where you're like, we need Rollins out there to match these minutes tonight. Go ahead and do it. I love the fact that the Bucks finally have what feels like options to throw out there that are going to be good options on the court.
Yeah. So I agree that I think Kevin Porter Jr. has to start. And a few people brought up to bring Kevin Porter Jr. off the bench. No, you didn't sign him and you didn't put this faith in him to be a backup point guard for you. I still believe his upside is the second highest on this team in terms of his raw talent. Plus, if he's coming off the bench, that becomes very duplicative with Karl-Anthony, that I think he has to start. To me, if Ryan Rollins continues to play like this and we have to entertain should this guy be starting? It becomes between AJ Green and Gary Trent Jr. That the substitution takes place there, where one of those guys is your big time shooter off the bench. Karl-Anthony's your big scorer off the bench. You got Bobby Portis and others. So we're still not there yet, but I think that's if there is a tweak, that's what we would start to see there. So as we get to how this team stacked up in these two games, the two games against the Cavs last year that we referenced that dropped the Bucks to 1-5 and 1-6 on the season, back-to-back games separated by a day. They lost by a total of 3 points. Yep. And the one in Milwaukee, it was the Milwaukee one, right? Where Donovan Mitchell hit the game winner.
I think so.
One in Cleveland was where they lost by 2, but it was really like a 2 or 3 possession loss that they came back towards the end. But still, they were competitive. After that, the wheels fell off. We mentioned the Knicks just boat raced you from start to finish. You mentioned the numbers that Nate Duncan shared, and you're kind of stepping on my corner, Camille. I know you have the Mind the Game podcast. Like I have Nate Duncan and Danny LaRue. So I believe those numbers they're developing their own statistical models, which I can't wait to see unveiled. I think it came from their beta version of that. I looked at what we have available to us from the league. And when the Bucks went with Giannis, Myles Turner, or Kyle Kuzma on Karl-Anthony Towns as the defender, he shot 1 of 7 and scored 2 points. And Kyle Kuzma passed the eye test. I think Towns was 0 for 3 against Kuzma, and he played the most minutes defending Karl-Anthony Towns. I saw somebody else, and I can't remember who it was, point out on Twitter a couple of the videos of you could see Towns getting more and more frustrated throughout the game. And one of the clips of Towns just getting really physical with him, and you could see him wearing that frustration. And the synopsis was, Kyle Kuzma has to defend Giannis in practice. Like, do you think Karl-Anthony Towns trying to play bully ball with him is going to deter him or sway him here? But I mean, to me, this matchup started with that because Jalen Brunson does it against basically everyone. I mean, the Bucks had no good options a year ago, but this is something Jalen Brunson does to everyone. I know Karl-Anthony Towns is a gifted scorer and does it to a lot of teams, but like it was jarring and eye-popping what he did to the Bucks, where you could see we don't want to put Giannis on him because we don't want to have Giannis take on that defensive assignment and do everything else for us. Brook Lopez, as much as we loved him, Camille, that was a disaster to put him on Karl-Anthony Towns. You only had Kyle Kuzma for one of those games. And again, to me, there's a larger point in why I think Kyle Kuzma looks different this year that we'll get to in a second. But you had three guys, and we mentioned this quite a bit on the pregame show going into the game of, I'm really eager to see this because there's three guys you could look at and say, I feel comfortable putting him on Karl-Anthony Towns. Giannis, Myles Turner, and Kyle Kuzma. And that showed up last night. The Ryan Rollins piece, even to a lesser extent, myself and Dave Kane said, with Jalen Brunson, you also have more guys. You're not going to stop him, but you feel comfortable throwing on him, especially when you're healthy, when you have Kevin Porter Jr.'s length and Ryan Rollins, that it's just not, let's go hunt the little guys and let's go pick at these weak spots with this defense. So that made me really, really anxious to see, how does this look? And I mean, they passed with flying colors, Camille.
Yeah, they absolutely did. A few of the times when Cat was trying to back down Kuz, it looked like that old picture when it was Boogie defending Karl-Anthony Towns, and he has like that look on his face of just like, I'm trying my hardest right now. A few times I felt like that was happening with Kuz defending him, and Kuz mentioned it after the game too, of like, people might look at him and see his frame and think he's not really that strong, but he was like, I am. And also, I like to play physical basketball. So like, he was like, I was ready for the challenge. And a lot of guys who want to play physical don't like when they're getting physical back. And Kuz was like, so I just stood on that. And that's what I tried to do in this game. And you saw the results of it, like you mentioned, where he just didn't have anything going. You have Kuz, you have Myles Turner, you got Giannis being thrown at you. It was just, I just keep saying about this team, it's nice to have options that are viable. Like, that's the thing for me, where 2 years ago we were like, man, you really only got, you got what you got and you got to play it. And now it feels like there are some options and you can do different things. And that aspect of this team is what, another reason why they're so exciting so far this season. But ultimately, like I said earlier, it's just a team that really seems to dig in. Like, I know Giannis mentioned, I think after the Cleveland game, like, this is the team that's going to fight and fight and fight. And every day
last night. Yeah.
Yes, it's going to be a fight all the time, and we don't mind it, and we're going to come out on top.
Well, go ahead. Because there was one
I
other
was
thing
going to say, to end that thought, it's just like, you hear about certain teams like that. Like Bobby Portis says a lot, like, you know, it's a blue collar city. I'm a blue collar player, but like this team this year is actually playing more of like that quote unquote blue collar style, where it is fight, it is hustle, it is effort. And that's an easy team to want to get behind and cheer for.
There's two other things from the post-game commentary too. Giannis, like we said, I don't want to compliment and praise Ryan yet. It's 4 games. It's too early. And if he has 3 bad games, I know how you guys work. It's going to be what's wrong with this guy. But I like what I see. And he mentioned specifically last year and earlier this season too, like he would come up to me and other guys, and in practice, he'd come up to me this year, me and Myles Turner, and say, how can I help? What do you want me to do in these spots? And Giannis mentioning, when I was a young kid, I did that with Chris, and I did that with other guys on our team that I would go up to and say, coach, player, like, what do you want me to do? What are the spots you want me to be in? How can I get better? And what do you need there? And to say, you know, Ryan's already doing that, and also pointed out, you know, I told him, but he's a kid that's a hard worker, and basically insinuating, I didn't have to tell him, but I just kind of reminded him, you have an incredible resource.
Mm-hmm.
Rajon Rondo is around this team quite a bit. Like, this is a guy you can model yourself after. Hopefully there's a little more offensively with Ryan, but like defensively, this is a guy to pick his brain. And Giannis said he does it every single day, on trips, on flights, in practice. He's always talking to him, watching film with him, learning tendencies. So like, that's something we should definitely keep an eye on here with this group. With Kuzma, and the last thing too, with Giannis talking after the game, it was interesting because as is always the case with Giannis, it felt like there was a lot of coded verbiage that was thrown in there. I know the risk of being the bad guy here. I know people are going to take the clip that he was asked by, I know Ian Begley asked one of the questions, but Giannis asked about the Knicks rumors. Did you catch some of how he worded what he said?
I did, but which part stood out to you?
One of the answers of I don't remember that. So like I guess this is just the thing that Giannis is going to be going with now. Look, I don't want to relitigate all of this and get into the Giannis. Is he asking, what it's Shams making this stuff up? Giannis just said, I don't read this. He never said anything else. So like we can move on from there. But he did mention the Cavs game. He mentioned it after that game. He mentioned it again last night. We competed and this group fought. Ryan Rollins after the game mentioned, Myles Turner, one of the things that we were all kind of looking to pick his brain on and just kind of hopefully absorb from him. That Pacers team last year fought. They never quit. They'd fall down. They'd come back. They did it all throughout the playoffs. They did it to the Bucks. You had firsthand experience of that. But Ryan Rollins specifically saying that was one of the things that we really wanted to learn and take from Myles Turner. And Giannis saying, like, this team is built to win. The way they compete, our size, we have defenders, we have guys that can knock down shots, and we compete. We don't quit. We play to win these games. We were competitive, even the Cavs game. And I forget how he phrased it exactly, but basically said that was not the case last season. So take that however you will. But I think it just speaks to the energy and the youth that's on this team.
Yeah, it helps to have those young legs. It helps to have more athleticism. It helps to have guys that you trust knocking down shots when they're open. Like the team makes sense. And I know, as we mentioned, like the names might not be necessarily household names outside of Milwaukee and the state of Wisconsin for a lot of people, but I think that's going to change. You're seeing more people talking about Ryan Rollins. Even Kuz is starting to get some people pointing out like, hey, he's actually playing all right in his
direct
role.
me to those people. Like, I'm there.
Dunker spot. Shout out to Nikias and Steve
all right,
for
I was going to say the
highlighting
support group has had a pretty light showing the last couple weeks.
But like it's just a different culture, and it feels like this team, even the energy in training camp, where you heard how competitive camp was, and seeing clips of Giannis being like, I like that you guys are being so physical right now. It helps me. It helps us all. We're ready to do this. Like this team just has a different energy around it. And like I said earlier, like this is the team that's easy to cheer for because of the effort that they continue to play with. And the best part of it right now, there are still levels for them to hit. Like we have not seen Myles Turner offensively knock down the shots that we're expecting him to knock down. He still has been a contributor offensively by moving the ball, setting screens,
especially defensively too.
It's defensively for sure, but offensively for Myles, like the shot hasn't fallen for him yet. Gary's had some moments where the shot is not falling for him as often as you would think in certain situations. Like there are still levels for this team to hit. Bobby Portis offensively has not been there this year as consistently as he has been in years past. So like knowing what these guys have done before, what the numbers say that they should be doing, like there are still levels for this team to hit. And when you combine that with the fact that Kevin Porter Jr. only played 10 minutes so far this season, and 9 minutes, he had the 10 points in 9 minutes. So he was cooking during his time. Like there is still so much potential, I think, with this team that they can continue to try to hit throughout this season, even with this 3-1 start, which is, it's nice to start 3-1. It is nice to be winning games at this point.
Yeah, 4 games, 4 different second leading scorers for this team too. I mean, you had Gary Trent was the second leading scorer opening night, right? And then Karl-Anthony. And Ryan Rollins was last. AJ Green was the Cavs game. So like that is a trend that's going to continue. You mentioned Myles Turner, and I think we've gone far longer than any of us than we anticipated on this. So there are some interesting things I want to point out about Myles Turner and Kyle Kuzma. We teased why it's working this year. So we're going to carry that over into basically a part 2 of the recap and a preview of the next matchup against the Warriors. So that'll be the show tomorrow, talking about what stood out in the early going for Myles Turner and some similarities we saw to a recent Buck that maybe went through that as well. But Kyle Kuzma, why it just feels like it works, at least fits better than it did this season versus last. So look for that on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Bucks. Leave your thoughts on this win and this, albeit small sample size, but impressive start for this Bucks team to start the season at 3-1, 1 year removed from a 2-8 start where it seemed like nothing could go their way. So leave your thoughts on what we've seen through these first 4 games, the Ryan Rollins game, the efficiency and dominance of Giannis, and how this group stacks up against those top teams in the Eastern Conference. But as I mentioned on tomorrow's show, we'll dig into Myles Turner, and we'll start to, I don't know if I'd say give flowers, but we'll start to shine a light on Kyle Kuzma as well. That'll do it for today's show. For Camille, I'm Justin. We'll talk with you guys once again tomorrow on Locked On Bucks.